Rayan was a small boy with big dreams. He was only 14, but he already carried a sense of responsibility that most adults sometimes lack. Every weekend he would grab a bucket, a sponge, and some soap, and head to the busy streets of his neighborhood to wash cars. He didn't do it for fun. He did it to help his family make ends meet. Money was always tight at home, and Rayan had learned early that hard work was better than waiting for luck to arrive. That Saturday morning, the sun was just beginning to rise, casting a soft golden glow on the streets. Rayan had already set up his little washing station beside a driveway. The air smelled faintly of soap and wet asphalt, and the sound of dripping water mixed with the occasional honk of a distant car. The boy worked quickly and carefully, scrubbing a large SUV that had accumulated weeks of dirt. He moved methodically, unaware that someone was watching him from across the street. A loud roar broke the morning calm. A motorcycle, shiny and black, came barreling down the street. The engine's growl echoed through the neighborhood. Rayan looked up, startled. A man much bigger than anyone in the neighborhood was riding it. His leather jacket was worn and creased, his tattoos peeking out from the sleeves. He wasn't just a biker. He was the kind of person who looked like trouble even before opening his mouth. The motorcycle screeched to a halt near Rayan's little washing station. The boy instinctively stepped back, wiping his hands on his shorts. The biker dismounted, towering over him. "Hey, what do you think you're doing?" The man shouted, pointing to his mud-stained boots. Rayan's heart raced. I'm sorry, sir," he stammered. "I didn't mean to." But the biker didn't wait for an explanation. In a sudden, terrifying move, he shoved Rayan to the ground. The boy fell hard onto the pavement, scraping his hands and knees. Pain shot through him, but what hurt even more was the shame and fear that filled his chest. He looked up at the biker, who laughed harshly, the sound echoing down the quiet street. Neighbors peeked out of their windows, unsure if they should intervene. Some were frozen in shock. Others whispered among themselves. No one wanted to escalate the situation, and yet no one wanted to let a child be hurt either. Rayan tried to get up, shaking off the dirt and tears that stung his eyes. "Please, I'm just trying to work," he said, his voice trembling. But the biker wasn't listening. He revved his motorcycle again, his heavy boots crushing a small puddle of water near the boy's bucket. Then without another word he sped off, leaving behind a cloud of dust and a very shaken Rayan. The boy sat on the ground for a long moment, catching his breath. His hands were scraped, his knees bruised, and his pride was hurt deeply. But more than anything, he felt small and helpless. This was supposed to be a normal day, a simple day of earning some money, and now it had turned into a nightmare. Once he gathered his strength, Rayan slowly picked up his bucket and sponge. He looked at the SUV he had been washing. The dirt was still there, mocking him, and he realized that his work didn't matter to the biker at all. It was a harsh lesson in how unfair life could be. But he didn't want to give up. He was determined to finish the job, even if his body hurt, even if his heart ached. Rayan wanted to prove to himself that he wasn't going to let fear control him. The boy went back to work, each scrub of the sponge a silent act of defiance. He moved carefully, trying not to make any more mistakes, but the fear lingered. Every time a car passed by, he flinched, expecting the biker to return. But hours passed and no one came. Still, the memory of that shove stayed with him. It wasn't just the pain. It was the realization that the world could sometimes be cruel, and no one would always protect you. Later that afternoon, when Rayan finally took a break, a neighbor approached him. She was a kind woman who had been watching from her window, worried about him. "Are you okay, Rayan?" she asked gently, kneeling beside him. Rayan nodded slowly, wiping his tears. "I'll be fine," he said. But the truth was that he wasn't sure he would ever feel the same about washing cars on the street again. The neighbor's eyes softened. "You're very brave, you know. Not many kids would get up and continue after what happened." Rayan managed a small smile. "I have to help my family," he said quietly. There was a weight in his words, a maturity beyond his years. He wasn't just a boy on the street. He was someone carrying responsibilities, someone who had learned early that life could be harsh. But that evening, when Rayan returned home, he felt something different. He felt anger mixed with determination. This wasn't just about a shove or scraped knees. It was about standing up, about not letting fear win, and although he didn't know how yet, he knew he needed help. The next morning, Rayan went back to the street, but this time a small crowd had gathered. Word of the assault had spread. Someone had taken a video of the incident and shared it on social media. The video showed everything: the shove, the fall, the look of fear on the boy's face. Within hours, people from all over were watching, sharing, and reacting. There were messages of outrage, support, and concern. Among the viewers were two men who hardly needed an introduction. They were famous worldwide, known not just for their wrestling careers but also for their actions off the screen. Dwayne Johnson, known as The Rock, and John Cena, two figures of strength and inspiration, had both seen the video. They were moved not by the violence itself, but by the courage of a small boy who had faced it and kept going. The Rock's social media post was simple but powerful. He praised Rayan's bravery and condemned the biker's actions. Cena followed with a personal message, sharing his admiration for the boy's determination and promising to take an interest in what happened. Their support wasn't about fame or headlines. It was about showing that someone cared, that the small voices could still be heard in a big, unfair world. Back in the neighborhood, Rayan didn't know about all this yet. He only knew that he felt shaken, but also a flicker of hope. The incident had left scars, but it had also sparked something new. For the first time, he felt that maybe, just maybe, people would stand up for him. As the sun set that evening, Rayan cleaned his equipment one last time. His hands were bruised, his arms sore, and his heart heavy with the weight of the day, but he also felt a quiet pride. He had faced something terrifying and hadn't run away. He had been hurt, yes, but he had also shown courage. And in that courage there was a story waiting to be told, a story that would soon reach far beyond the quiet streets he called home. And though he didn't know it yet, this was only the beginning. What started as an ordinary Saturday, a boy washing cars to earn a little money, was about to become a story that would capture the attention of people across the country. The assault, the fear, and the pain would not define him. What would define him was how he faced it, and the unexpected allies who were about to step into his life. The morning after the attack, Rayan woke up feeling sore. His arms ached from scrubbing cars, his hands were scraped and bruised, and his knees still bore the marks of the shove from the biker. But more than that, he felt the weight of the previous day in his chest. The fear, the embarrassment, the sense that he had been powerless. Still, he got ready and went outside, his bucket and sponge in hand. He wanted to continue working to prove that he wasn't going to let fear stop him. What he didn't know was that his story had already begun to travel far beyond his quiet street. A neighbor who had witnessed the incident had captured the entire moment on her phone. At first, she had only intended to share it with friends, hoping to warn others about the biker. But as soon as the video went online, it spread like wildfire. People from across the city and soon across the country were watching. The video showed everything: the sudden shove, Rayan falling to the ground, and the fear in his eyes. It was raw, unfiltered, and deeply human. Within hours, social media was filled with messages of outrage. People expressed shock that someone could hurt a child who was just trying to work. Parents shared the video, warning their own children about bullies and strangers. Some users criticized the biker harshly, calling for justice, while others shared heartfelt messages for Rayan, offering encouragement and support. The story quickly became more than just an incident in one neighborhood. It became a symbol of courage and resilience. Among the countless people who saw the video, two names stood out. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and John Cena, two of the most famous wrestlers in the world, were scrolling through social media when the clip appeared on their feeds. Both men had long histories of supporting youth, speaking out against bullying and standing up for people who couldn't defend themselves. As soon as they saw the video, they were moved, not by the fame of the story or the viral attention, but by the bravery of a small boy who had faced someone much stronger than him. The Rock shared a short but powerful message online. He praised Rayan for standing tall despite the fear he had faced. This boy showed courage in a situation most adults wouldn't handle. "Let's make sure he knows he is not alone," he wrote. John Cena posted a message soon after, expressing his admiration and promising to take an interest in what had happened. Rayan's courage reminds us all that no act of bravery is too small. "I hope he knows the world is rooting for him," he wrote. For the next few days, the video kept spreading. Each time someone shared it, more people learned about what had happened. News outlets picked it up, telling the story of the boy who had been assaulted while trying to work honestly and diligently. People began leaving messages for him online. Encouragement, praise, and sometimes even small donations to help him with his work. For Rayan, who had never imagined that the simple act of washing cars could reach so many eyes, it was overwhelming. Meanwhile, Rayan's neighbors began noticing something different. People he had never met were stopping by, offering kind words, small gifts, and even job opportunities. Some brought snacks, others brought extra sponges and soap so he could continue his work without worry. The boy was shy at first, unsure how to respond. He had always been quiet and careful, but he slowly began to realize that people genuinely wanted to support him. His parents, who had been worried sick after the incident, were both relieved and amazed by the attention. They had always known that Rayan was special, hardworking, kind, and determined, but seeing the world acknowledge it in such a dramatic way was something they hadn't expected. They encouraged him to keep going, but also warned him to stay careful. "People are kind, Rayan, but not everyone understands what is safe," his mother said softly. As the story grew, the Rock and John Cena decided they couldn't just watch from afar. They wanted to meet the boy and show him that courage did not go unnoticed. They reached out to Rayan's family through a private message online, arranging a meeting. At first, Rayan didn't believe it. He thought it was a joke. After all, why would two of the most famous men in the world care about him? A boy from a small neighborhood. But soon enough, the arrangements were confirmed, and it became real. The anticipation in the neighborhood grew as well. Word spread quickly that the Rock and John Cena might be coming to meet Rayan. People were excited, curious, and a little nervous. The quiet street, once only known for its small homes and family cars, suddenly felt like the center of attention. Some residents decorated the street with balloons and banners, while others simply watched from windows, eager to witness the moment. Meanwhile, Rayan spent his days continuing to wash cars, but he was different now. Each bucket of water, each scrub of the sponge reminded him of the attention he had received and the support that was waiting for him. He felt stronger, more confident. Even though the memory of the biker's shove still lingered, it didn't control him anymore. Instead, he focused on the positive, the messages of encouragement, the strangers who cared, and the two heroes who were about to step into his life. When the day finally arrived for the meeting, Rayan's family walked him to the street where a small crowd had gathered. The boy's heart raced. Then suddenly, the rumble of motorcycles and cars approached. People turned to see two familiar figures stepping out. The Rock, with his warm smile and towering presence, and John Cena, friendly and approachable, were walking toward him. Rayan froze, unable to speak at first. The men knelt down to his level, smiling kindly. "Hey, Rayan," The Rock said in his deep, calm voice. "We wanted to meet the boy who showed so much courage." John Cena added, "You didn't deserve what happened to you, but you stood tall, and that's why we're here." For Rayan, it felt unreal. The world he had known, small, quiet, filled with everyday struggles, suddenly seemed much bigger. And yet, in that moment, he didn't feel small. He felt seen. He felt valued. It wasn't just about being noticed by celebrities. It was about being acknowledged for his bravery, for facing something terrifying and refusing to give up. The Rock and John Cena didn't just stop at greetings. They spent time talking to Rayan and his family, listening to his story and learning about the challenges he faced. They praised his work ethic, his kindness, and his determination. And then quietly, they promised that they would do what they could to make sure something like the assault never happened again, that Rayan and other kids in the neighborhood could live safely and feel supported. As the day went on, Rayan began to understand something important. The support he had received wasn't just about fame or viral videos. It was about humanity, people seeing someone in need, stepping in and showing care. And that realization gave him a new sense of purpose. He didn't just want to wash cars anymore. He wanted to show the same courage and kindness that people had shown him. By the time evening came, the crowd had dispersed, and Rayan was left with his family, feeling exhausted but uplifted. He had faced fear, pain, and uncertainty, and now he had also experienced hope, kindness, and recognition. The memory of the biker still lingered, but it no longer held power over him. Instead, it became a reminder of how bravery and resilience could attract support, even from unexpected places. That night, as Rayan lay in bed, he thought about the future. The world felt bigger and more complex than ever, but he also realized that courage, honesty, and determination could make a difference. And somewhere far away, the Rock and John Cena were thinking about him too, ready to support him and show him that even small acts of bravery could ripple far beyond what anyone could imagine. Rayan closed his eyes, feeling a mix of exhaustion and excitement. The assault, the fear, and the pain were still part of his story, but now they were part of a journey that was only just beginning. And for the first time in a long time, he felt like he could face whatever came next, knowing that he wasn't alone. The morning the heroes were set to arrive, Rayan woke up earlier than usual. His stomach was full of butterflies, a mix of excitement and nervousness. For days he had been wondering if it was really going to happen. Could it be true that two of the biggest figures in the world of wrestling, The Rock and John Cena, were actually coming to meet him? The idea seemed unreal, yet the messages and confirmations from his family proved it wasn't a dream. He got ready with unusual care, making sure his clothes were neat and his hair tidy. It was a small thing, but Rayan felt it mattered. Today was not like any other day. Today, the world he had only seen through screens was stepping into his life, and he wanted to be ready. His parents watched quietly, sharing smiles and whispered reassurances. "Just be yourself, Rayan," his father said. "That's enough." By the time he reached the street, a small crowd had gathered. Neighbors who had been following the story closely came to witness the moment. Some had even brought their own children, wanting them to see courage and kindness in action. The air was filled with a mix of anticipation, excitement, and curiosity. Everyone sensed something extraordinary was about to unfold. Then the sound of engines broke the morning calm. A sleek motorcycle and a car pulled up slowly, drawing the attention of everyone around. The Rock stepped out first, his towering frame and warm smile immediately capturing everyone's attention. Right behind him was John Cena, equally commanding but with a friendly, approachable presence. Their arrival was not flashy or dramatic. It was calm, respectful, and full of genuine warmth. Rayan's heart raced. He wanted to run, to hide, and to greet them all at once. His legs felt like they had forgotten how to move. But the Rock bent down slightly, smiling at him. "Hey, Rayan," he said in his deep, calm voice. "We heard about you. We wanted to meet the boy who showed so much courage." John Cena stepped closer, his voice gentle but firm. "You didn't deserve what happened, but you stood tall. That's why we're here today." The boy blinked, unsure what to say. Words felt too small, too simple for the moment. So instead he nodded slowly, still absorbing the sight of these two giants in his life. Not just in size, but in the way they cared. There was no judgment in their eyes, no condescension, just respect. And for Rayan, respect was something he had rarely felt from the world outside his small neighborhood. The Rock reached out his hand. "We want to hear your story, Rayan. Every part of it." The boy hesitated but eventually began to speak, telling them about the previous week. How he had spent hours washing cars, the sudden arrival of the biker, the shove that had knocked him to the ground, and the fear and humiliation that had followed. As he spoke, his voice trembled at times, but he didn't stop. He wanted them to know exactly what had happened, how it had made him feel, and how he had tried to continue working despite the pain. John Cena listened closely, nodding and occasionally asking questions, but never interrupting. "How did you feel when it happened?" he asked gently. Rayan paused, thinking carefully. "I was scared," he admitted. "And I was angry too. Angry that someone could hurt me for no reason. But I didn't want to give up." His honesty struck a chord with everyone listening. It wasn't a story of vengeance or bravado. It was a story of courage, perseverance, and human dignity. The Rock smiled warmly. "Rayan, that courage is what makes you strong. Not many people can stand up and keep going after something like that. You showed more strength than most adults could ever manage." Cena added, "And bravery like yours deserves support. You shouldn't have had to face that alone." After talking, the two wrestlers decided it was time to do more than just words. They wanted to make a real difference, not just for Rayan, but for other kids in the neighborhood who might face similar challenges. They walked with him and his parents to the local police station, ensuring that the assault was officially reported and that the authorities would take the situation seriously. It was a simple step, but for Rayan it was life-changing. He had always felt powerless when adults treated him unfairly, but now he saw that help could come in unexpected ways. and that standing up for oneself was not wrong. Once the legal matters were set in motion, the Rock and John Cena organized a small community meeting. They invited local business owners, neighbors, and even some school officials. Their goal was clear: to make sure the neighborhood was safe for children like Rayan and to highlight the importance of courage and community support. The meeting wasn't about fame or social media clout. It was about people connecting, learning, and committing to a safer, more caring environment. During the meeting, Rayan's story was shared again, this time in a more personal setting. People listened attentively, some wiping away tears as they heard the boy recount his experience. The room was quiet, except for the occasional murmurs of encouragement. The boy, usually quiet and reserved, began to feel his own confidence returning. He realized that his courage had not only inspired two of the biggest heroes in the world, but also touched the hearts of his neighbors and community. The Rock and Cena spoke to everyone about empathy, kindness, and the importance of standing up against bullying or violence. It's not just about facing someone bigger or stronger, the Rock said. It's about doing the right thing, protecting those who need help, and making sure our communities are safe. Cena added, and it starts with small acts of bravery. Rayan showed us all that. He didn't back down. He faced fear head-on. After the meeting, the wrestlers spent more time with Rayan. They gave him advice on dealing with difficult situations, encouraged him to continue working toward his dreams, and even shared some of their own personal stories of challenges and setbacks. For the boy, this was incredible. He realized that even people who seemed invincible faced struggles, but courage and perseverance could make all the difference. That afternoon, as the sun began to set, the Rock and Cena decided to do something special for Rayan. They organized a small fundraiser to help him and other children who worked to support their families. Local businesses and neighbors contributed, providing resources, safety equipment, and even scholarships for children who wanted to continue their education. It was a tangible way of showing that courage and hard work were valued, and that the community would stand together to protect its young members. Rayan was overwhelmed. Tears filled his eyes as he saw how much people cared. The boy who had once felt powerless and small now understood that he could be supported, valued, and celebrated for his courage. The fear of the biker, the pain from the shove, and the humiliation he had felt were still there, but they no longer defined him. Instead, they became a part of his story, the part that led to recognition, support, and hope. By the evening, as the Rock and Cena prepared to leave, they knelt down to speak to Rayan one last time. "Remember this moment," the Rock said. "This is proof that courage matters, that people notice, and that you can make a difference just by standing tall." Cena added, "And never forget that asking for help is not weakness. You're stronger than you know, and the world can be kinder than you think." Rayan nodded, his heart full. He had learned something that day that he would never forget. Courage wasn't about being fearless. It was about facing fear, even when the odds were against you. And the support he had received from two people he had once only seen on TV showed him that kindness and action could come from anywhere. As night fell, and the street returned to its quiet routine, Rayan and his family reflected on everything that had happened. The boy had faced danger, fear, and humiliation, but he had also found courage, community, and unexpected heroes. And although the biker's actions had started this chain of events, it was Rayan's bravery that had changed the story. Not just for himself, but for everyone who had witnessed it. That night, as Rayan lay in bed, he felt a deep sense of gratitude and newfound strength. He knew that life could still be challenging, but he also knew that courage, honesty, and the support of others could create a powerful force. And with that thought, he drifted to sleep, ready to face whatever came next with confidence and hope. After the meeting with The Rock and John Cena, Rayan's life began to change in ways he could hardly imagine. The assault he had endured had once made him feel powerless, but now he felt a quiet strength growing inside him. The support he received from the wrestlers had sparked something bigger than he had expected. Not just admiration, but a real, tangible change in his neighborhood. It started slowly. Local shopkeepers began stopping by to check on him while he worked. Some brought extra supplies, buckets, sponges, soap, and even towels, so he wouldn't have to struggle alone. Others offered him small gifts or snacks just to brighten his day. Rayan was shy at first, unsure how to respond. He had grown up learning to be careful and polite. But now he realized that these people were showing him kindness because of the courage he had displayed. The children in the neighborhood began treating him differently as well. Some of them had always teased him or ignored him, but now they looked at him with respect. They asked questions, wanting to know more about what had happened, and they began to see him as a source of inspiration. Rayan didn't boast about the attention or the support he received. He simply continued to do his work, quietly proud of the fact that people had noticed his determination. At school, the story of his courage had also begun to spread. Teachers and students alike were impressed that someone so young had faced such a frightening situation without giving up. One of his teachers invited him to share his experience with a small group of students, emphasizing the importance of bravery and resilience. Rayan was nervous at first, standing in front of his peers, but as he began to speak, he felt something shift inside him. He realized that his story could help others, that his courage could inspire other children to stand up for themselves and for what was right. Meanwhile, the neighborhood as a whole started to take action. Meetings were held to discuss ways to make the streets safer for children. Some residents volunteered to patrol the area during busy hours, ensuring that kids could play and work without fear. Others organized workshops about kindness, respect, and standing up against bullies. Rayan's story had sparked a larger conversation, one that reminded the community of the importance of looking out for one another. The local council also got involved. They recognized that this incident was not just an isolated event, but part of a bigger issue about child safety and community support. They praised Rayan for his bravery and announced initiatives to help children like him. Small grants were made available to kids who worked to support their families, giving them access to safer working conditions and educational opportunities. Rayan could hardly believe it. He had gone from feeling helpless to being part of a movement that could actually make a difference. Even the biker who had assaulted him was finally held accountable. The local police acted swiftly, reviewing the video evidence that had gone viral. The man was warned, fined, and given a strict reprimand. While it wasn't the most important part for Rayan, it was a relief to see that justice had been served. More importantly, he realized that his actions, combined with community support, could create consequences for people who acted unfairly or violently. Through all this, Rayan himself began to change. He no longer felt small or powerless. He had learned that courage wasn't about fighting or being the strongest. It was about standing up, asking for help when needed, and continuing to move forward despite fear. He began to walk taller, speak more confidently, and even smile more often. The boy who had once feared every passerby now felt a sense of pride and self-respect. His parents noticed the change too. They had always worried about his safety, but now they saw him growing into a stronger, more resilient young man. They encouraged him to keep working, but also to take time for himself, to pursue his education and his dreams. "You've shown everyone what courage looks like," his mother said softly. "Now it's time to let that courage guide you in everything you do." The community also found creative ways to celebrate his bravery. A small local event was organized, where neighbors gathered to honor Rayan and other children like him. There were speeches, music, and even games. The atmosphere was joyful, full of pride and gratitude. Rayan was shy in the beginning, but as the applause filled the street, he began to understand the impact his actions had made. He wasn't just a boy washing cars. He was a symbol of courage and resilience. Local businesses joined in as well. Some offered him part-time work in safer environments, allowing him to continue helping his family without facing the same risks he had encountered before. Others donated supplies, books, and educational materials to support his growth. Each gesture, big or small, reinforced the message that the community was standing together to protect its young members. Rayan's story even reached children in neighboring towns. Some wrote letters, sharing their own experiences and asking for advice on how to be brave. Others sent drawings thanking him for inspiring them. For the first time, Rayan understood the true power of his story. It could reach far beyond his own neighborhood, teaching other children that courage, honesty, and perseverance mattered. Through it all, Rayan remained humble. He didn't seek fame or attention. He simply wanted to continue helping his family while learning and growing from the experience. But deep down, he felt a sense of pride. He had faced fear, and in doing so, he had shown others the meaning of strength and resilience. Even weeks later, the neighborhood had not forgotten the impact of what had happened. People still checked on Rayan regularly, offering advice, encouragement, and friendship. The atmosphere of the street had shifted from quiet caution to one of support and community. Neighbors who had once ignored each other were now talking, collaborating, and sharing responsibilities. Rayon's courage had created a ripple effect, reminding everyone that a single act of bravery could change many lives. At home, Rayon reflected on everything that had happened. He thought about the fear he had felt when the biker shoved him, the pain and humiliation that followed, and the overwhelming support that had come afterward. The lessons were clear. Courage matters, asking for help is not weakness, and kindness can appear from the most unexpected places. One evening, as Rayon sat in the small courtyard of his home, he looked around at the neighborhood. Children played safely on the streets, neighbors chatted and laughed, and a sense of hope and community hung in the air. He realized that his story had become bigger than himself. It had become a story about courage, unity, and the power of human kindness. The boy who had once been small and afraid had grown in more ways than he could measure. He had discovered the strength inside himself, the support that could come from others, and the importance of using his experiences to inspire change. And while he still faced challenges and obstacles, he knew he could meet them with courage, just as he had faced the fear and pain of that fateful day. In the end, Rayon understood something important. Bravery wasn't about the absence of fear. It was about taking action despite fear, about standing tall when the world seemed unfair, and about accepting help when it came from those who cared. His life had changed, not just because of the viral video or the support of the Rock and John Cena, but because his courage had inspired others to stand together, creating a safer, kinder, and stronger community. And so, as the sun set over the quiet street, Rayon felt a deep sense of accomplishment. He had faced hardship, found strength in adversity, and discovered the power of courage and community. The boy who had once been shoved to the ground was now standing tall, a symbol of hope and inspiration for everyone around him. Months had passed since the day Rayon had been shoved to the ground by the biker, the day that had once left him feeling scared and helpless. What had begun as a frightening incident had transformed into a journey of courage, support, and growth. The boy who had once felt small and powerless was now stronger, more confident, and even more determined to keep moving forward. Rayon continued washing cars, but it was different now. He worked with pride, knowing that his hard work mattered and that the world had noticed his courage. Customers who had heard about his story went out of their way to support him, leaving extra money, words of encouragement, and even small tips that added up to a meaningful contribution to his family. Each time he picked up a sponge or a bucket, he felt a quiet sense of accomplishment. He was no longer just a boy washing cars. He was a young person who had faced fear and come out stronger. The neighborhood had completely changed. The streets that had once felt quiet and ordinary were now alive with a sense of care and community. Neighbors looked out for each other, offering support to children and families who needed it. People organized small events, workshops, and gatherings, encouraging children to speak up, be brave, and help one another. Rayon's story had not only inspired courage in him, but had created ripples that spread across the whole community. Rayon's school recognized him as well. Teachers and administrators praised his bravery and resilience, inviting him to speak during assemblies about courage and standing up in difficult situations. For Rayon, this was intimidating at first, but he soon realized that his experiences could help others. He shared what had happened to him, not for attention or sympathy, but to show that even when life felt unfair, courage and honesty could change the outcome. Students listened intently, many of them inspired to face their own challenges with newfound determination. The support from the Rock and John Cena continued as well. They stayed in touch, checking in on him from time to time, offering encouragement and advice. Their involvement had started as a surprise but became a steady reminder for Rayon that there were people who cared about him, who believed in him, and who were willing to act to make the world a safer place for kids. Knowing that two of his heroes had noticed his courage gave him confidence in ways he had never imagined. One sunny afternoon, Rayon was invited to a small award ceremony by the local council. It was to honor him and a few other children who had shown bravery and resilience in their own lives. As he stood on the stage, receiving the certificate and shaking hands with officials, he felt a rush of emotions: pride, gratitude, and a deep sense of responsibility. This recognition was more than a piece of paper. It was proof that courage and perseverance could create real change. Even the people who had doubted him or ignored him before had begun to see Rayan differently. Children who had once teased him approached him with respect. Adults who had overlooked his determination now offered kind words and advice. He realized that courage was contagious. By standing up for himself and refusing to be intimidated, he had inspired others to face their own challenges with strength and honesty. Rayan's family also felt the change. The support and recognition he had received lifted a heavy burden from their shoulders. They had always known he was special, but now the world knew it too. They encouraged him to continue working hard, but also to think about his education, his dreams, and his future. "You've shown everyone what courage looks like, Rayan," his mother said. "Now it's time to let that courage guide everything you do." The biker who had assaulted Rayan had been held accountable months ago, and the boy noticed that the fear that had once haunted him was fading. While the memory remained, it no longer controlled him. He had faced danger, felt pain, and found support from people who cared. He had learned that even the smallest act of courage could attract help and create change. This lesson stayed with him, shaping his actions and decisions in daily life. Rayan's story even reached beyond his neighborhood. Social media continued to share clips, messages, and stories inspired by his courage. Children from other towns wrote letters and messages, asking him for advice on how to face bullies or difficult situations. Some sent drawings, others shared personal experiences, and Rayan responded, offering encouragement and support. He realized that his story could inspire far more than he had imagined, and he felt proud knowing that his courage had become a source of hope for others. Despite all the attention and support, Rayan remained humble. He never sought fame or recognition. He continued washing cars, helping his family, and living a life filled with gratitude. But internally he felt a transformation. The boy who had once been afraid of everyone on the street was now confident, kind, and determined to keep growing. The courage he had shown that one terrifying day had become a part of who he was. Months turned into a year, and Rayan's life kept improving. He received small scholarships and educational support from local programs, enabling him to attend school and focus on learning alongside helping his family. He developed new skills, made friends, and continued sharing his story to inspire others. Each small success reminded him of the power of courage, resilience, and community support. The neighborhood remained stronger than ever. Inspired by Rayan's story, adults and children alike took more responsibility for one another. People organized workshops, safety patrols, and support groups. The streets that had once felt ordinary now felt alive with a sense of care, respect, and protection. Rayan's courage had not only changed his own life, but had sparked a movement of kindness and accountability. One afternoon, while walking through the street, Rayan noticed a young boy setting up a small washing station with a bucket and sponge. The boy looked nervous, unsure of himself. Rayan walked over and offered a smile. "Don't worry," he said softly. "You can do it. Just stay confident, work hard, and don't let anyone scare you. You're stronger than you think." The young boy nodded, inspired by Rayan's words. It was a moment that reminded Rayan how much his own courage could impact others. Just like the support he had received had changed his life. Even in quiet moments at home, Rayan reflected on everything he had learned. Courage, he realized, wasn't about never feeling fear. It was about standing up in spite of fear, asking for help when needed, and believing that good people could make a difference. The attention he had received from the Rock, John Cena, and his community wasn't about him being famous or special. It was about the universal truth that courage and kindness mattered, that even one small act could ripple outward and change many lives. As time went on, Rayan's life became a story of inspiration for people everywhere. Media outlets shared updates on his progress, highlighting his bravery, determination, and ongoing contributions to the community. Interviews and features focused not just on